Shalom, shalom. Welcome to the Stephen Kanyinge Njoroge official YouTube channel. I am broadcasting live from Nairobi, in the Republic of Kenya, East Africa. We are living in a historical moment in Kenya. This is a defining moment in Kenya's history. Kenya is crying out. The 25th day of June 2024, that is yesterday, the young people of Kenya, the Gen Zs, took to the streets protesting, targeting to occupy parliament in response to the Finance Bill 2024. There were unprecedented scenes yesterday. Young Kenyan men, patriots between the ages of 20, 23 years old, even one was 17 years, shot dead in front of parliament. Kenya is crying out, and the government ignored the cries of Kenyans regarding the finance bill. The public participation, Kenyans of all walks of life, different sectors of the economy, expressed their opposition to this particular finance bill. But yet, the ruling party and the government went ahead to table the motion through the leader of the majority. And young Kenyans began to agitate on social media against particular segments of the finance bill. And it's because of their pressure, the Gen Zs, that the government scrapped some of the tax proposals and called them amendments. And our young people went to the streets last week on Tuesday and again on Thursday, peaceful protests. Parliament on Thursday last week began to debate the finance bill. And yesterday, Parliament again assembled at the committee stage of the finance bill. Meanwhile, outside Parliament, hundreds of thousands of young people gathered on the streets of Nairobi, and many, many more in 35 counties around Kenya 35 counties out of 47 counties, young Kenyans came out to protest against the Finance Bill 2024. Now, as the days went by, this wasn't just about the finance bill, but about poor governance, corruption in our government. Seeing some members of parliament, cabinet secretaries, cronies of the president displaying, flaunting their wealth, their ill-gotten wealth, posing, wearing $1,000 watches, wristwatches, shoes worth hundreds of thousands of shillings, displaying high-end luxury vehicles worth 40 million, 60 million shillings. Just flaunting their ill-gotten money in front of our faces, carrying millions of shillings in cash in church fundraisers, and at the same time insulting the youth of this country. Well, the boiling point came yesterday. The Gen Zs of Kenya. Now, Gen Zs are people born between 1997 and 2012. So it's anybody between the age of 27 years and 12. Hi, Abigail. Yeah, imagine that. So many Kenyans, even those who are working, they don't have 3 square meals a day. These guys in parliament, some of these cabinet secretaries and their friends, getting these single sourcing tenders to supply furniture to State House, to any other government ministry or agency, and they come out on social media showing us these luxury cars, and then they are putting there a gospel song saying it's God who has blessed them. No, you're stealing our money. I'm a taxpayer. You're stealing my money, my taxes, and coming to flaunt before me to show off, displaying words of notes, maybe even 1 million or 2 million shillings on your table as a member of parliament. What are you telling us? The young people had enough. We had enough. We've had enough. Cut corruption. That is the solution, not raising taxes. There's a governance problem in Kenya. We can't finance your corruption with our hard-earned taxes. We can't work like donkeys for you to live as kings on our backs. It took young people and their deaths for the president to concede today that he will not sign this contentious, obnoxious Finance Bill 2024. Legally, the mover of the motion, who is the leader of the majority, is the one who should withdraw the bill So we are waiting for that to happen. This is an indictment on the leadership and government of William Ruto. Kenya is different. This is not the Kenya of Daniel Arap Moi, when many Kenyans were in the villages and they were illiterate and were fearful of the government. They could not express themselves. They were not exposed. This is a different Kenya. 56 million Kenyans, 75% of them under 35 years, educated, exposed, there is information available. You cannot just lie to them. They can do research, they can check, they can fact check, and this is what they have done. I salute our young generation. I have kids who are Gen Z or Gen Zs. One of them, went to the protests last week and yesterday. So this is personal, and it is to millions of Kenyans. Parents, the church, even the Kenya lobby groups of manufacturers, they were all supporting the Gen Zs and their agitation. Kenya is crying out. Kenya is crying out for change, is crying out for accountability, is crying out for new leadership based on integrity and vision. Kenya is crying out for a new government. This is it. There's too much wastage in government and corruption, cronyism, and burdening Kenyans with taxes. And most of these proposals in the finance bill came from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. As if we can't manage our own economy. So we want to manage our own economy. You can plan how to raise taxes or raise revenue. Taxation is not the only way we can raise revenue. The government should think outside taxation, because the tax base of Kenya is so small. I mean, how much can you tax 4 million Kenyans who are in the tax bracket or who are paying taxes? You can't. So it's a matter of expanding the tax base that is enabling Kenyans to earn income that can be taxed. So if we have a tax base of, let's say, 25 million or 30 million, we can raise enough revenue from taxes, reasonable taxes. But at the moment, taxing 4 million Kenyans to finance the budget and pay debts is impossible. It can't work. it can't work. I don't know what these economists who are advising the president are thinking. Because, first of all, there's low cash flow in Kenya. Circulation of money is low. Big business, small business, they are all complaining that their customers are not paying back. Their money is held up out there. Even the small shops, they're struggling to survive because Kenyans are cutting back even on buying basic commodities, food. They are eating less. And you want to tax them more? Impossible. We need to create an environment in this country where everybody can do business and thrive. The problem here is that a few people have captured the business in this country. Government business, because the government is the biggest employer and the biggest customer in Kenya of any goods or services. That's the fact. But beyond that, just creating an enabling environment for people to do business, money to circulate, to go around, so that people can buy and sell. Right now, the purchasing power of Kenyans is so low. So a growing economy is a balance between consumption and production. So in Kenya now, we don't produce, neither are we consuming. The economy is flat or even going down. So our young people, they've gone to school, they are graduates, they have degrees or college diplomas, and there are no jobs for them. Those trying to go into business, it's tough. They are fighting for their present and their future, and our future as a nation. China invested in logistics, in building ports, seaports, roads, special economic zones. This helped China to become the world's factory. And now they're getting money from companies who came to China because of cheap labor and the infrastructure. So they are earning revenue, not from taxation as such, but from the money they are making from exports, manufacturing, production. That's what we need in Kenya, not politics day and night. So lower the cost of electricity. We've just had floods, so our dams are full. The cost of power should be going down now. Reduce taxes so as to increase the savings. If you reduce taxes, Kenyans will have a little bit more extra money, and they'll spend that money. They'll invest that money. But as we speak, our economic model is botched up. It makes no sense. It just creates poverty. We've all just listened to our deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, and he's blamed the intelligence service for not advising the president. That is a big, big statement to make from the deputy president, that our intelligence service is dysfunctional. He's saying, in other words, that we're not secure. Because if Parliament was stormed yesterday by young people, how about if there were a professional, well trained armed group? They'll take over the country. So we have a problem in Kenya. Kenya is crying out. If the deputy president, if the deputy president could say that on live television, that our national intelligence service failed the president, failed Kenya, how safe are we? What needs to be done? Kenya is crying out at this moment. The cry of our youth is the cry of the parents. Everybody is complaining in this country apart from the corrupt who are enjoying their ill-gotten billions and millions. We are living in a serious time. And Kenya is crying out for change, for a new way of doing things in this country. Because clearly, things are not going in the right direction. Starting off with the parliamentary system, members of parliament, they have clearly lost touch with their population, with the voters. So they go in parliament and they serve the interests of the party and the interests of the president. And they forget the interests of the voters and the nation. And this is what led to the protests. This is why the youth occupied parliament, because parliament no longer represents us. The MPs no longer represent the interests of the Kenyan voters and the Kenyan people. So this is a big question on our political system, on our political parties, on our parliamentarians, and even on our president. It is time for reflection on the part of government, on the president, his deputy, the members of parliament on both sides, opposition and government, to reflect on their role as our servants. Because clearly things will not be business as usual. The young people is a different generation. They demand accountability from leaders and from the government. They demand dignity and integrity. They're demanding equal opportunity, which is guaranteed in the Kenya Constitution. They are demanding representation from their elected leaders. Their voices have been heard. What is the way forward? Kenya is crying out for a new beginning, for a new style of leadership. So this is a new day in Kenya. It is sad that we have to lose those young people on the streets outside Parliament and in Githurai, which is outside Nairobi, around 25 kilometers from Nairobi, is the suburb. Again, we don't know how many people were killed last night, shot dead by security officers, shooting them in their estate, in the neighborhood, far from the city center and parliament at night. This is sad. So the days ahead, I don't know what will happen, but the Gen Zs have spoken out and they have made their position clear and they enjoy the support of a majority of the Kenyan population. The verdict is that the government has failed Kenyans. It has failed its young people. It has failed its own children. Parliament has failed Kenyans. Political parties have failed Kenyans in championing and voicing out our interests and concerns. They have completely failed. The church also failed Kenyans. So the young people had no choice but to speak for themselves in their own way, in their own words. So Kenya is crying out. It's a cry from the youth, and they must be heard. What is being called a national dialogue, I don't know how it will be done, but what we need to say is action. There's been too much talk in Kenya, and what we have seen is negative action, embezzlement of public funds, corruption, wastage, theft of money. So Kenya is crying out for transparency, integrity, development, is crying out for economic revival, crying out for jobs, economic opportunities, not shipping out our youth to work as maids and slaves abroad. Let them work in Kenya and build our country. So I'll end my message here because we still have some days ahead when things will keep on unraveling. But the young people, they are peaceful. So peaceful protests that turn violent. All they want is to have a dignified life in their own country. We want to see our money being used properly. We want value for our money, value for our taxes. That's what we want. So God bless Kenya. God bless our young people. I'm praying for the souls of the young men who lost their lives yesterday. Young people, may the Lord show them mercy, and may God show us mercy as the Republic of Kenya. God bless Kenya.